A lot of magical characters are hard to relate to. They seem kind of alien-like. The thing that was unique about Constantine is he was a blue-collar magician.
You definitely get that old detective feel from a 40s film with him a lot of times based on, he's a smoker and a drinker. Sometimes makes the wrong moves, hurts other people that he might care for.
He's probably more flawed than most DC heroes. Doesn't always do the right thing necessarily, but his heart's in the right place, it seems like.
The figure of the trickster is really one of the most classic archetypes in all of human storytelling. And Constantine really embodies that. He's one of the characters in literature and certainly in comic books who is actually closest to what the occult really is.
What are you? Where you, Johnny?
He made magic accessible. A lot of people prior to Constantine felt that, well, with magic you can do anything. But with Constantine, magic has a heavy, 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 heavy cost.
Daemonium redditus! Daemonium redditus! Daemonium redditus!
I think that storytelling and in the real world, the way that people use magic will always reveal what their true desires are. And then that's a window straight into what type of person that is. Anyone whose job it is to create a story that other people believe is doing magic. And that's really Constantine's ultimate form of magic in a way.
We all use each other. You know that better than anyone.
He comes from a line of magi or magicians and sorcerers, so that runs through his blood.
He sort of functions, there's a mythical character called a sin eater. The idea of the sin eater is it's a person who takes on your sins and takes on your punishment.
Christ, we don't want any!
He never gets the credit, really, for helping people. He's the guy you don't want to have to call that you have to call. And then you resent having to call after you've done it.
Maybe this isn't a good time.
It's never a good time, mate.
Magic is always used in horror movies. It always is portrayed in a negative light. So people get their ideas about it from Hollywood and also from a lot of the tropes that were invented in horror fiction and pulp literature around the beginning of the 20th century. Real magicians are very much focused on their own self-evolution, on gaining wisdom, on gaining understanding, in a way that's much more similar to, let's say, Tibetan Buddhist monks.
Visiting hours were over at...
He feels uniquely American in the way that he behaves, and British detectives don't behave in that way. They behave like Sherlock Holmes.
There's always a price to pay, Chaz.
Constantine also is sort of like a fallen angel. I think there's a lot of analogous thematic aspects between the noir character and between the fallen angel character.
Now what are you waiting for? Finish your dinner.
A sigil is really the most basic type of magic. It's when you condense a desire into a symbol that you then forget what the original desire was. And this becomes extremely magically powerful because it's a way of talking directly to your unconscious mind while completely bypassing the interference of our conscious mind.
We would look at some of the Justice League Dark stuff that had been done here, at WB, but most of it was trying to forward the story.
A real magician will do things called banishing rituals, which are rituals set up, and Constantine does these in the comics quite a bit, often, where you'll see him, drawing a circle on the floor, creating a magical space. And that's a standard basic magical technique, which is meant to define the magician's universe and keep out external influences.
The circle with the star, and I remember having a conversation about that a couple times, how many points the star has. I think one was satanic, and we were trying to avoid that.
Rituals, I mean, this is the core of magic. A real-world ritual would be surrounding yourself with items or sigils or occult artifacts of power and doing certain gestures and vibing yourself up into a mental state.
We referenced that, and we referenced some of the Constantine comics, and we referenced the TV show, trying to isolate certain elements that we needed to tell this story.
Continuo therapeutic.
A ritual is a way of, it's almost like a programming language for changing your consciousness.
He used really dark magic early on in the flashback when he summons Nergal to try and rescue Astra. He's kind of like a natural at this, and so his hubris says, "Oh, I can do anything." Then it backfires on him.
Once you delve into dark magic, you better be prepared. If it's for the good of all, you're going to have to sacrifice.
Remember what you said about sacrificing anything for Trish.
Going down that path to dark magic or Kamdeva curse is kind of the result. It isn't exactly what you were hoping for, but it did work to a certain extent. The end result of the film, we find out what the effects are from that and using that curse.
John Constantine.
Yeah? Well, it's a name I hope I never hear again.
A magical tool in real magic is really kind of a meditation focus. Just like a Buddhist monk would draw a sand mandala to represent the universe or their own consciousness, in the same way a Western magician creates magical tools as a way of manifesting themselves outside of themselves.
The sorcerer's magic cloak or the sorcerer's hat. There are lots of various sorcerer characters that have a magic cloak, that have a cloak that has a life of its own, and for Constantine that's sort of embodied in his trench coat.
The synchronicity wave or the synchronicity highway, that's how magic actually works. Synchronicity was defined by the psychologist Carl Jung. Coincidence that is so meaningful and seemingly relates to you specifically that it seems as if it's supernatural.
When he harnesses that, it increases his luck. And so he's almost can have luck at will. But the fun part of that, and the interesting from a storytelling point of view, is that it often creates problems for the people around him.
Chaz, Renee, I'm going to need a little more than 5 minutes.
What are you up to, John?
But magic in the real world works by the engineering of coincidence. What you're really doing when you're doing magic is tuning your mind to look for what you're telling it to look for.
I haven't got the power to take on Nergal's competitors. I need a weapon to use against them.
Magic is inseparable from all of the religions and theologies of the world, because all the way up till the modern scientific period, people have lived in realities defined by theology. Religion tells you what to believe, whereas a magician will take the ideas of religion and theology as perhaps testable theses, or take them as a starting off ground or a jumping off place for their own creative efforts.
Can't change the past, Chaz.
No. But you can change this.
He's constantly trying to remedy someone else's cause or problems.
There's always a price to pay.
And so that's almost like a nice foreshadowing of what happens later.
He doesn't have the traditional heroic character arc. Constantine's form of magic often involves, making bargains with friends in low places and making deals with demons that he probably shouldn't have.
Don't gobble me up until you've heard my offer.
I am listening.
The question is, would the people involved have paid that price ahead of time if they were aware of what the ramifications would be?
No, I've got an errand for you to do.
I think in earlier British literature, most of these sorcerers and things were always of a high education, and so I think bringing him back down to more of a working class situation, it humanizes him more than what Alan Moore probably grew up with.
The great tragedy of Constantine, in a way, is that he doesn't have as much power as he thinks he does. The core of his character is the ability to leverage almost no power at all. The most power that a magician really gets is the ability to choose the life they want to live. Right? They don't end up with power over other people. And Constantine seems to forget this sometimes, and this is why he's constantly, sticking his hand in the blender.
I come to you as a suppliant.
I guess if you're a creator involved with the John Constantine franchise, you inevitably will meet his doppelganger.
If I was ever to meet him in real life, I wouldn't ask him for a power. I'd love to be able to call him up to get me out of a jam I'd gotten myself into.
I've not encountered a Constantine. I mean, I know Alan Moore absolutely believes in magic and, claims to be a magician himself, so maybe he has.
Maybe a couple of my friends in the past could have been a type of Constantine, the bad end of Constantine.
It's actually one of my great hopes that we, as a species, begin to look at the world of metaphysics and spirituality and magic per se, and turn the lights on there and figure out how these things may actually be produced by neurochemistry. We have things like nuclear weapons and AI and bioweapons and genetic engineering, yet we don't seem to have the wisdom and understanding to use them properly.
Constantine, his hubris and his arrogance did cause such a big problem, and now he's seeking redemption, and he understands with great power comes great responsibility.
You're no bloody man.
Constantine is the polar opposite of Superman. He's a complete bastard.
Oh, that was a lie. It's
fun sometimes to wallow in the gutters and to deal with a character who isn't true blue and who lies a lot, and it's the difference between Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. I mean, people like them both, but sometimes it's fun to hang out with Han Solo.
Deja que Orlevedo de consuma. Deja ese nombre separado.
Enjoy the rest, old man. God knows you could use it.